I am excited to introduce our funding and admissions manager, Betsy Valencia, to the stage to lead the next session on housing and funding. So please join me in welcoming Betsy.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Thumbs up in the back. Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll call you up. Thank you so much. All right, perfect. So we have a lot to cover during this session, so I'm going to jump right into it. Michelle already introduced me, but again, my name is Betsy Valencia. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the Student Funding and Admissions Manager here at the School of Public Health. I might have greeted some of you during check-in already, but again, hello. My contact information is listed for you all. My email is sphaward@berkeley.edu. Just want to go ahead and share that with you all again in case any of you have questions after this presentation. Just go ahead and feel free to send me an email. What I want to go ahead and cover next is what our agenda is for today's session. I'm going to talk briefly about housing. My colleague Liza, who will be joining me shortly, will be talking about transportation. Then we will have a Q&A with some of our current students to kind of talk a little bit more about their experiences with housing. After that, we'll move on to the second portion of the presentation, which will solely focus on funding for our master's students. If you are a doctoral student, you will be asked to go ahead and join the rest of this doctoral students for your mixer, and I'll go ahead and let you know, but you can go ahead and step out for that. The next thing I want to share is that all of the information that I'm going to be speaking about today is available on our Spring Visit Day website. You can go ahead and scan that QR code. It's going to lead you to our resources page, and that's where you're going to find our housing and transportation guides. If you have any questions about, again, any of the funding stuff, just feel free to send me an email. Perfect. I'm going to give that a couple more seconds in case anyone wants to scan in. Some phones in the air. Perfect. All right, we're good? Thumbs up? Awesome. All right, so just a little bit of context on where we are located. We are currently in Berkeley, California, which sits on Ohlone territory. We are in Alameda County. Our neighboring cities include Oakland, Emeryville, and Albany. We are in what is known as the San Francisco Bay Area, but more specifically, we are in East Bay, which means we are right across from San Francisco. And if any of you are traveling, you might already know this, but the nearest airports are Oakland and San Francisco International. In terms of housing, again, we do have very limited campus housing. So the campus does offer apartments and private studios for graduate students. Those can range anywhere from about $1,400 to upwards of $2,000, and they vary. So again, some of them might be private studios, some of them might be apartments where you might be asked to live in a single, double, etc. And I do want to stress that these are very, very limited. So if that's an option that you are considering, I would definitely recommend applying for housing, campus housing, as soon as possible. Another option that we have available is known as the Village, which is family student housing. These range anywhere, again, between 1 to 3 bedroom apartments, and they can range anywhere between $1,700 to upwards of $2,600 as well. Some of the amenities do include things like a recreational and community center, and they also have a child care center. Another option that's a little bit more affordable is known as the Berkeley Student Cooperative Housing. We refer to them as co-ops here. They are a low-cost option, and again, it is cooperative housing, which means that students that live in this housing are required to work. So that can range anywhere between cleaning, gardening, cooking, etc. And usually those tend to be divvied up by what's known as the house manager. So if any of you are interested in the cooperative housing system that we have here, we also have one house that is specifically for graduate students as well. You would go ahead and also reach out to the housing department, and you would go ahead and fill out an application for that. Just as a side note, if you take a look at the housing guide, there is a link that will link you out to one of the websites which shows you how to fill out an application. So we do have a tutorial available online if any of you want to complete one of the housing applications here on campus. The next thing is we also have summer transition housing available. This is more like short-term housing, and it is run again by Cal Housing, which means that you might end up being assigned like a smaller dorm, which is usually where like freshmen typically live. And again, this is only available during the summer. So if you're looking to, transition between living situations, you might need housing for like a week or two. That is also an option that is available through campus housing. Other resources that are available are a graduate assembly housing guide, which I have also shared in that link. Cal Rentals. Now, Cal Rentals is not Cal Housing, but it is a website that is only accessible by Berkeley staff, faculty, and students. So that would also be a great resource for any of you that are looking for housemates. You can go ahead and use that website as well. And then the last option is Berkeley Home Match. Now, Berkeley Home Match will match up UC retirees, so folks that are already retired and might have like a room or two that are available in their house. They can typically rent it out to graduate students, specifically for graduate students. So they do rent them out for slightly like below market price housing, if that makes sense. But yeah, that is also another option that's available. And again, all this information is listed in our housing guide. For those of you who are looking to live off campus, the most lived in areas in 2022 included North Berkeley, South Berkeley, Albany, Oakland, and then other. Places for you all to look for off-campus housing do include, we have two Facebook groups. One is specifically for UC Berkeley students, and then the other one does allow folks that aren't UC Berkeley students to join, but that one's also available to you all, and again, they have all been linked out. We also recommend websites like Zillow or apartments.com. There is also rooming houses across Berkeley. I've listed some of them here. Rooming houses are fully furnished homes that, again, might rent out single rooms, doubles, triples, etc. They are fully furnished, but they're not like cooperatives in the sense that you're required to work in the actual house. So that is another option available to you all. And then again, if you are preparing to apply for housing, this may be your first time, this may not be the first time, but just as a quick reminder of things that you might want to have on hand ready when you're looking to apply are just your general contact information, any previous residence information that you might have, including like a landlord as a reference, any personal reference that you have if you haven't had a landlord before, haven't been on a on a lease before. I would definitely say at least try to have a reference or two available. If you have any pets, please have their information available as well. Landlords typically want to have that on file. Your credit score, proof of income or employer information, and for those of you who do not plan on working next academic year, but you are receiving any sort of financial aid, loans, etc., you can also use things like your financial aid award letter to share with your landlord. And most of them are used to renting to college students, so they're usually pretty flexible and things like that. If you are going to be using a cosigner, we would definitely recommend having their information readily available as well. Again, things to consider are moving cost. Typically, most places will ask you for first month's rent and deposit. Some of them might ask you for first and last, but typically we mostly see first month's rent and a deposit that is required. Average cost, again, can range anywhere between $1,600 upwards of $3,500. It just kind of depends on what kind of housing you're looking for and what's available at that time. On average, it takes 1 to 2 months for students to find housing, and then they typically become available anywhere between May and August because most students might be graduating, moving, leaving for the summer, etc. So you can definitely find summer sublets if you want to move in a little bit earlier, but if you are looking to just sign a lease, again, most of them do become available anytime between May and August. And then another great resource to just kind of have in the back of your mind is if you ever need it, hopefully you don't, but the Berkeley Rent Board is a great resource for you all to keep in mind. They are really great with renters' rights and things of that matter. So if you ever have any sort of issues with your renter, your landlord, etc., please try to connect with the Berkeley Rent Board. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to my colleague, Liza, to speak about transportation.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liza Lutzker. I use she, her pronouns. I work in the Division of Environmental Health Sciences, but I'm also actually an incoming student. Like many of you, I'll be in the BPH program in the fall. But I'm kind of a transportation nerd, so wanted to talk a little bit about transportation here. And just, I often think about housing and transportation really going hand in hand because, of course, you may have, depending on where you want to live, you're going to need to figure out how to get around. And sometimes it's also hard to think about the difference in rent between two different places, but remembering that how you get around is going to change how much you're going to have to pay for your transportation. So if you're spending $100, $200 a month on gas, if instead you can move somewhere else that's $200 more a month in rent, but you're not paying for gas and possible like parking, whatever, just something to keep in mind. Because UC Berkeley and Berkeley Way West are situated in a really transit-rich, walkable, bikeable area. Berkeley Way West is only blocks from BART, and it's serviced by about 15 different bus lines. And the city of Berkeley is like a huge biking city. We have the 4th largest bike commute mode in the US, and only about 50% of Berkeley residents, only about 50% of trips in Berkeley are by car. This website is a really great website run by the Central Transportation Office, and it has a lot of the information that I'm going to present in here. And I think it's probably also in the guide. So public transportation, what's really great as a graduate student here is AC Transit, which is our local bus line. You actually get free bus passes, unlimited, and you can chain your trip by, if you have a bike, you can put your bike on the bus, you can get around really easily. There's a great app that gives you real-time arrival information. It's called Transit. And then BART, it's not free. You can get around to a lot of places, right? You can get to the airports, you can get to San Francisco. You can get to San Francisco actually on AC Transit, their Transbay bus lines. And so this is a really great opportunity. And this is just a map of all the buses that come right into Berkeley. There's just a ton of them. So it's really easy to get around on the bus here. Within campus, if you don't have a car and you need to get around campus, there are shuttles that run really regularly. That's called Bear Transit. These are all their routes. They go through campus and around campus, and they run during the day and at night. And if you are studying really, really late and the shuttle is no longer running, there's something called Bear Walk, which is like an escorted door-to-door service, either by shuttle or by walk to certain areas. So you don't have to worry about getting stranded at night or something. Biking and micromobility, so like scooters and other devices like that, are really, really popular here. There's increasing numbers of protected lanes for people to bike in and scooter in and that sort of thing. You don't have to bike or scooter on busy streets. There is a whole network in Berkeley here outlined in purple, and also in Emeryville and Oakland and Albany, that are these low stress routes. And you can find out more information about that in the guide. Really highly recommend doing this, but don't go on the really, if you're gonna go, don't go where you would drive, because those streets are not really meant for, they're not as safe. This is a picture here of the bike room at Berkeley Way West. There's a secure bike room that is there for students to put their bikes and scooters and whatever in, and it's like key card access only, so you don't have to worry about stuff getting stolen. And then there's a really robust bike and scooter share program all over the city of Berkeley. You can't bring them onto campus, the scooter share and bike share, but you can get up and down, these huge hills with these programs. And there are low income qualifications that make it a lot cheaper. And then finally, if you do decide to come and you don't have a car, there's car share here. There's a really robust car sharing program called Gig Car. And a lot of people choose to not have cars and then use Gig Share when they want to do it. If, in the end, you do need to have a car and you do need to drive around, just some things to know about driving to campus. There is a really, really limited supply of on-street parking around campus. It's 2-hour limited, and that means you have to move your car every 2 hours, and they do ticket, and the tickets are expensive. So it's not a recommended way to necessarily come to campus. There is UC Berkeley student parking. It's $450 a semester. Here's a map with the little arrow showing where Berkeley Way West is. The lots are way far away all over campus. So it is what it is. And you can't live in Berkeley or Albany and qualify for that program. The idea is you should be able to get here via public transportation or bike or something. And then there are City of Berkeley garages. If you have to drive, you can pay $250 a month, or there's an hourly fee. So this is possible, but I think as burgeoning public health people, it's both better for your, cardiovascular health, it's better for the planet, it's better for building community. If you can get around without a car, which I think most people can, I know not everybody can do it, but it's definitely recommended and a way to get a little bit closer to campus and not spend any more money because you can take your transit money and put it into housing. All right, I think that's it.
Perfect. So I'm going to ask our panelists to join me on stage. Where are you? There you are. Beautiful. Please go ahead and join us on stage. We're going to move on to our Q&A, and we're going to be answering general questions about housing and transportation. If they have transportation, yeah, can you join us? Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead. Just take a seat wherever. The microphones should be on. And then can I have everyone introduce themselves and let us know what division you're in?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Allie Wick. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a first year in the Health and Social Behavior program.
Hi everyone, my name is Tanya Evdosiuk and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a first year nutrition program.
Hi everyone, my name is Vicky Mosquita. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm in the Health Policy and Management first year program.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions for today? I can go ahead and get us started. How long did it take each one of you to find housing?
Yeah, so for me, I think I started looking right after I got my admissions to Berkeley. So it took just about over 2 months, just a bit over. And yeah.
Yeah, I started looking after committing to Berkeley in the middle of April, and it took about 2 months as well.
I also started looking, but from like the time of like really like seriously looking, about a month and a half. But I also did private rental, so like through Zillow or apartments.com. So anything before like a month and a half is a little too early if you're doing that way.
Mm-hmm. And then can I ask what kind of housing? Are you on campus, off campus?
Yeah, I am off campus in an apartment with other roommates.
Initially, I was looking for on-campus housing, but I was fortunate to find an off-campus room rental in someone's home. So I lived there with my 2 cats.
Does anyone have any questions? Oh, I see a hand in the back. Yes? How did you guys pay for school? Okay, we're going to move on to funding after this portion, so I can go ahead and talk a little more about funding after this session. Yes? So how far are the garages from the public health building? Correct? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what's up here on the map. So the little arrow points to where it is. And then I don't know if, Betsy, can you show where the garages are? Oops. Forward to,
Forward?
yeah.
This one?
No, here. So can you see my little mouse? So this is probably the closest parking garage, but it's like, it's probably like I'm going to say it's a 7-minute walk downhill and a 15-minute walk uphill. But it's not guaranteed that there's going to be parking there. And then the other ones are like down here, which is much flatter, but probably also about 15 minutes both ways, and then kind of spread around. So, yeah.
Yes?
How much do you pay for rental each month, and for what type of roommate situation?
Our student asked how much you pay in rent, and then kind of what's your general housing situation, including like housemates.
Yeah, so I live with 2 roommates currently. I have my own room and my own bathroom, and I pay about $14.25 a month. And utilities range from about $50 to $60 per month, I would say.
Yeah, so currently, like I mentioned, I live in someone's home renting a room, which was fully furnished, including utilities, and I pay $900 a month. However, when I applied to campus housing, the lease that I was offered was $1450 a month.
I live in a one-bedroom in North Oakland, so I kind of commute a little bit, and I live with my long-term partner, and it's $11.50, I think, with parking, because sometimes they'll charge you extra for parking.
Perfect, thank you. Does anyone else have any more questions? Yes?
Do you have any neighborhood recommendations or maybe areas you'd advise to not maybe look in?
Generally speaking, most of our graduate students tend to live in North Berkeley. Some students do live in South Berkeley, but I feel like South Berkeley tends to be more undergrad heavy. So if you're looking for a more quieter area, I would definitely probably recommend maybe looking in Berkeley, maybe even northern than that in like El Cerrito area. But I would definitely say living in South Berkeley, it's going to be very rowdy because of the undergraduate students. So if that's something you're looking to avoid, maybe not so much in South Berkeley, but there is other surrounding cities that you can probably kind of get away from, but then.
Mind if I just add? So I'll just add, because I actually live in South Berkeley, but I think it's only the due south of campus. Like if you're due south of campus, it can be pretty loud up until only a couple blocks though. And then there's further into South Berkeley, south of campus, and also South Berkeley West. That's less undergrad-y. So it's really just like what's called South Side that's like really very undergrad, but all of Berkeley is really pretty lovely. North Oakland is really nice. Albany, it's all Emeryville. It's all, yeah, I don't think there are huge areas to avoid right around campus.
And like Liza mentioned, it's very, public transit is very accessible. So I also live in Oakland and I have no issues kind of getting to and from work or anything like that.
Yeah, I'll just add, because it's kind of priority for me to like kind of be close to a grocery store, just because I don't have my car here, and so that was pretty important to have like a bus line that can get close to a grocery store, just to keep in mind where those bus lines are going.
Yeah, and going off of that, living in North Berkeley, I also don't have a car, and there are several walkable grocery stores and very many bus lines, but that was definitely a priority when looking for housing.
I think, so I have a car, so I'm able to live a little bit further. I mean, if you want to be very close to campus, I definitely recommend staying around Berkeley, and that's more of like the university feel and like more of the community. And so, but I really enjoy living in Oakland. The area I live, Grand Lake, is really nice. Temescal is really nice. Rockridge, Adams Point, those are all areas with a lot of Berkeley grad students who branch out a little further, and you're able to save a little bit on rent, even though you kind of have to compensate and take a longer commute to campus. So.
Yes.
I don't think I'm like super detached. I mean, I'm also pretty mobile because I do have a car. I think it'd be different if I didn't. But the bus lines, BART, and if you like really on the off case, Uber is like relatively inexpensive sometimes. So I think that there's ways around it. Like I said, I live with a long-term partner, so my priority wasn't necessarily like being super close to campus. It's a little bit more of like an adult feel when you're out there, you know, a lot less students, but not super disconnected. I mean, a lot of our cohort lives very far away, or like, you know, like no one's super close to each other. So I think everyone kind of, we have a meeting point between Berkeley and Oakland usually.
Okay. I'm going to do one more question, and then after that, we're going to move forward with the rest of the funding session. Yes?
Yeah, so my current lease is 1 year, and so I'll re-sign in August. I think a lot of leases typically start in August or sometime in the summer.
Yeah, I extended my lease for a second year, so it'll be through the end of the program.
mine was a little different. I'm month to month. So in the off case that I wanted to move, I don't necessarily have to give too much notice, but yeah, that's so I don't have to re-sign for the next year or anything like that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. If y'all could just give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you. Okay. It is now 1:40, so if you are a doctoral student, Ella is in the back. She's waving hello. She's going to go ahead and take you over to the doctoral student mixer with our graduate division. Is that correct? Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward with the funding portion of this presentation. Okay, so the first thing I want to go ahead and cover is the cost of tuition. I do have the totals up on the screen. They may be a little bit harder to read because there's a lot going on. But just at a glance, I do have the summer tuition here at the top left. This is more so for students that are like in programs where you do need to enroll during the summer. This is just generally what the schedule looks like. If you are an non-resident, which means you are an out-of-state student or an international student, you are required to pay non-resident tuition. However, you're not required to pay non-resident tuition during the summer, which is why it's not included here. If you are a student that is going to be enrolled in a professional degree program, so that would be something like an MPH, you are required to pay professional degree supplemental tuition. So that has been included for you here on the tuition totals for master's students. On the left-hand side of this column, you'll see what the totals are for California residents, non-residents, and international students are listed on the opposite side. This assumes that non-residents and international students do not have residency status during their second year. And I'll kind of go over a little bit more about how students can qualify for in-state tuition. But generally speaking, again, if you're in a one-year MPH program, you're a California resident. Again, these are mostly approximations, but you're looking to spend upwards of $36,000. If you're a non-resident, that's going to be upwards of $48,000. If you're a California resident and you will be enrolling in a 2-year MPH program, that's closer to about $63,000. If you are international or non-resident, that number is closer to $88,000. For those of you who will be in academic programs, this should say MA and MS. California residents, upwards of $40,000, and non-residents, again, that's going to be upwards of $56,000, closer to $57,000. And again, these totals do include things like the cost of student health insurance. You do have the option to waive that if you have your personal insurance, and you can go ahead and do that directly with the SHIP office. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Okay, the next thing I want to quickly, again, promote is that a part of the financial planning roadmap that we have on that student resources website also contains this form, which will kind of help you plan out what your estimated costs will be per term. So what you can go ahead and do is go ahead and look at the fee schedule, which is again available online, but you can go ahead and plug in what your total is going to be for the semester. If any of you are receiving things like financial aid, grants, tuition remission, anything like that, you can plug that in as well. And then this form will actually tell you what your outstanding balance will be for that semester if you want to go ahead and plan things out per semester and get a better idea of what your finances are going to look like. The next thing I want to talk about is cost of attendance. Now, these are expenses that are not directly related to your degree. So these are not, this does not include things like tuition. These are more so estimates that the graduate division provides us with to let students know what their personal expenses will be outside of actual things like tuition. So they include things like housing, utilities, food, supplies, transportation, etc. So generally speaking, students do spend about $30,000, give or take, completing a program. This is just like what a student spends in one academic year. So that would include things like the fall, spring, and summer. And again, these are things that are not directly due to the university. So if you want to get a better idea of what you're looking to spend in one academic year, just on personal expenses, again, give or take $30,000, and then you can go ahead and add on what the cost of tuition is going to be if you want to go ahead and use this, this roadmap here. Okay, California residency for tuition purposes. So California residency allows students to waive out of paying non-resident tuition. So this is available to U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens. If you have questions about your residency, you can also go ahead and contact the Office of the Registrar directly at ores@berkeley.edu. Generally speaking, students who are eligible for AB 540 are eligible for for in-state tuition, regardless of citizenship status, as long as they attended a California high school for at least 3 years and graduated. It doesn't matter if you moved out of state and you're now returning, you would still be eligible for this in-state tuition. So if any of you, again, attended a California high school for at least 2 years and graduated, even if you moved out of state, doesn't matter how long you moved out of state for, if you're coming back, you are eligible for that in-state tuition. And then for those of you who would like to apply for in-state tuition during your second year, you do have to have eligible immigration status. Again, you can go ahead and check in with the Office of the Registrar directly to ask a little bit more about your personal case. And you do need to be in California for at least 366 days consecutively, and you will also need to complete an intent to remain in California. So typically what they ask for when students apply for California residency during their second year is that they have proof that they've actually been in California for that long. So if you have something like train tickets, plane tickets, if you signed a lease, if you have bills or anything like that that you moved to a California address, go ahead and have those on file. Another thing that they ask for is what they call an intent to remain in California, which means that you're establishing ties in California. So you would need to get something like a California ID, driver's license, file taxes here, register to vote, things like that. They will be asking for that sort of supplemental documentation for those of you who are interested in that. And then just as a reminder, if you're an international student, you will unfortunately not be eligible for in-state tuition even in your second year. Okay. For FAFSA, those of you who are interested in applying for FAFSA, you can go ahead and do that at fafsa.gov. Our school code is 001312. Graduate students, just as a reminder, are not eligible for things like the Pell Grant. So if you do apply for FAFSA, what you will receive is a combination of unsubsidized loans and plus loans. Because you're all graduate students, you're not required to submit any sort of parent information, so you're all considered independent for the purposes of financial aid. Again, I would definitely say, even if you don't think you're going to need the student loans, I always encourage students to apply for FAFSA in case there's any sort of emergency, just because by the time it takes time to submit your application for the financial aid office to receive it, process it, et cetera. If there's any sort of emergency, you don't really want to wait the additional 1 to 2 weeks to receive your financial aid offer. So I always encourage students to do that. As a reminder, you're not required to accept any loan offers that are made available to you, but again, it is a great resource to just have ready. And then loan offers are equal to what the total cost of attendance is going to be. And again, so we can just kind of take a look back. Your cost of attendance is determined by what your academic program is. So if you're in a professional program, for example, those of you who are in an MPH program, your cost of attendance would be roughly around $33,000 plus the cost of tuition on top of that. So roughly speaking, if you're like a California resident and you are in an MPH program, your loan offer will be up to your cost of attendance, will be give or take probably something like $50,000-ish to $60,000. It does vary from academic school year to academic school year, and that is adjusted every year. So that's just like a rough estimate if you're looking to apply for federal student loans. For those of you who are interested in work study, you must be eligible for FAFSA. And the way that work study works is that once you've paid off your tuition for the semester, if you have any loans left over, you can convert that loan eligibility into earnable wages. So rather than borrowing an additional $5,000, you can turn that eligibility into work study, and then you can earn up to that amount. You can actually earn up to $10,000 per semester. Most students don't tend to work that much while they're enrolled. And the way that it works is, again, you log into your student portal, you convert your loan eligibility into work study, and then you would work with the work study office directly to find a role on campus. There is some available off campus as well. And these positions can range anywhere between being employed in the library, one of the student cafes, et cetera. I do want to differentiate that work study should not be confused with things like graduate student teaching positions or anything like that, those are completely separate. So these are more like hourly wages where you would go in and then they would essentially give you a paycheck every week or so. In terms of funding, so all of you who applied were considered for funding during the admissions process by your program. So there is no separate application required. Awards can range anywhere between $500 to upwards of $40,000. If case any of you want to know whether or not you're being waitlisted or considered for an award, you can go ahead and reach out to your admitting program. They'll be able to go ahead and let you know. And then if you also received our funding email, there is some resources available as well that will lead you to databases where you can essentially search up different scholarship opportunities that are available for you to apply directly to that are not related to Berkeley. And then again, there shouldn't be any doctoral students in here, but in case there is, if you have any questions about your funding, you can go ahead and speak to your program directly. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is international student eligibility. You are all eligible for things like fellowships, scholarships. We do host scholarship competitions throughout the academic school year, which you are able to apply to, things like graduate student appointments. And then there is very limited aid provided by the Berkeley International Office. However, they do ask that students attend, are continuing students to apply. So incoming international students would not be eligible for the type of funding that they have. That's more on a need-based kind of emergency-based model that they have. But that is a resource that maybe some of you will need in the future. For undocumented students, again, some of you might be eligible for things like California residency if you are AB 540 eligible. You would not be eligible for something like federal work study, but there is director's work study available through the undocumented students program. Again, also eligible for scholarships, fellowships, any of the scholarships that we share through our competitions, and things like graduate student appointments. Other resources that are available to students are, again, some of our scholarship competitions. We do have roughly about 6 or 7 that students can apply to during the academic school year. The way they work is I'll just generally send out an email, let you all know that the applications have opened, and then I also maintain a document that I update regularly with any outside scholarships that students can apply to as well. So I update that pretty regularly. Another resource is the STEP program, which makes things like technology more accessible to students by giving out things like loaner laptops or grants and things like that that students might need to complete their program. The graduate division does offer things like student and caregiver grants. Those are typically open for students to apply to sometime in May or the summertime typically. And again, if you're an incoming graduate student, you are eligible to apply for that as well. Another thing is the SPH Food Pantry, which is actually provided by the RISE office. And we do have pop-up food pantries at least once a month at Berkeley Way West. And our Basic Needs Center, which is actually located in this building in the basement level, also has a campus food pantry, which is available to all of our students. They also provide a food assistance program, help students apply to things like CalFresh, and they have other various housing resources available. I know you have questions. So who wants to go first? I see a hand. Where is it? I saw a hand. Yes. Mm-hmm. Sometime in the summer. I'm not really sure when it opens. Typically, I try to keep an eye out around May, but during the summer is definitely when it opens. And students, if you're a parent or caregiver, please will apply to that. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Yes.
Anticipate responses by, or like if now we haven't heard anything, is it a good time to reach back out to our departments about that?
If you haven't heard anything yet, I would definitely say reach out to your admitting program. The question was basically what is the timeline for students to be notified about fellowship. So if you haven't received a notification yet and you're curious, I would definitely say reach out to your program. They are given out on a rolling basis. So the first round did go out already. And then typically as students accept or decline their admissions offers, that's when the program will typically roll over and award other students. So if you want to know where or if you're anywhere on their list, I would definitely say try to connect with your admitting program. Do I have any more questions?
Follow-up question to that one. Who would be the resource for the HPM program to follow up on the fellowships question?
Our HPM, you said, correct?
HPM, yeah, not that one.
The program manager is Christine Doss. I don't think she's in this room at this moment.
Okay.
But yeah, you would go ahead and connect with her directly.
Amazing. Thank you.
And then I saw a hand in that middle table.
Yeah, I can project. My question was about specifically
if you submit your SIR or not, because we were talking about, you were just mentioning how the fellowship offers were sent out on a rolling basis depending on people accepted or not. Does that mean that if you submit your SIR and you have not heard back yet about a possible fellowship, that you are more or less likely to receive an offer?
It doesn't really affect your likelihood of receiving a fellowship, but I would definitely say try to connect with your program whether you have or haven't submitted your SIR, just to know where you are standing. Some programs, again, do have a list of students that they know that they want to award, but again, maybe they're just waiting to hear back from another student, and the student might have already SIR'd, so that doesn't disqualify that student from receiving a fellowship. But I would definitely say try to connect with your program, whether or not you've SIR'd, just to know where you stand on their list, on their rankings. They have the microphone, so I'll get you right after them. Thank you.
Would we have heard about merit and need-based aid at the same time if we were considered for both? And is it typical for students to receive funding from different sources?
Yeah, so some students will receive funding for different sources. So the way that it works is when students apply for admission and students are being reviewed for admission, they're also being reviewed for things like fellowships. So that can be both need and merit based. So some students might receive a combination of awards where, you might get X amount from one award and then X amount from another. So there can be a combination of different sources where some students might just receive one lump sum from one award that might be merit based or something like that. So it does vary from what's the availability that programs have for funding and then what the student is eligible for. And then there was a hand up here up front. Yeah, go ahead.
But all of the information is based in 2021 and it has been updated. I didn't know if that was like an inactive fellowship program or if that was like just that year.
That's a great question. So we did not receive the funding last academic school year, so we only had one cohort, but we do expect to have a much smaller cohort coming in. But we only got a very, very limited number of slots for that program. So it's going to be based on who the programs nominate, and then we still haven't, just for transparency, we still haven't selected students for that program. But the way that it's going to work is programs are, again, going to look at students that they would like to award and then nominate them for that, for those slots. But we do expect our next cohort to be maybe 3 or 4 students, as opposed to like the 20 that we had in the past. But we will have a much smaller cohort this incoming fall term.
For the director's work study, is that similar to just regular work study where I would have to coordinate that with, who would I coordinate that with?
Yeah, you would just coordinate with the undocumented students program, and then they would go ahead and let you know what the next steps are, but it's directly through their office. And I saw a hand right over there.
Do the scholarships take into consideration any fellowships that you may have gotten? Do they even look at your application? Do you report that, or are they completely separate?
I know that during the application process, there is a section where students fill out some financial background information, maybe a little bit of insight on why they are looking for funding. So that is something that the programs do take into consideration. Again, there is some awards that aren't necessarily need-based. So even if a student is receiving a fellowship, that doesn't necessarily disqualify them from receiving funding for their program. No. Yeah. And then there is a hand right over there. Thank you, Michelle. You're the best.
Hi, I was wondering if you have any information about loan forgiveness for graduate students.
There was two programs. Is it the recent one where it's like the Biden one, or is it the one if you work like in a public service sector?
I'm not sure. Like whatever information you have about that.
Okay, I have very limited information on both. No, I know that the loan forgiveness program, the one that came out recently, was put on hold. So unfortunately, we're still waiting on that. But there is a program for students who work, I believe, in public service. I believe you have to work in public service for 10 years and make 100 and just one more second. It's 120 consecutive payments. Yes, and then after that you would qualify. But I do also want to emphasize that that's only for federal student loans. So if any of you took out private student loans, like a Sally Mae or something like that, then you wouldn't qualify for that sort of loan forgiveness.
Okay. My other question would be about the Student Technology Equity Program. Can you say more about that?
I'm sorry, which program?
The STEP program.
Oh, the STEP program. Yeah. So the STEP program, I believe, is stewarded. It might be by the graduate division. But yeah, the way that this program kind of came to be was usually, I think, around COVID, when students really need to have laptops, webcams, headphones, et cetera, to be able to complete their program. And the way that the program worked is that the students would directly apply to the program. It was on a first come, first served basis, where some students were given something like a smaller grant to purchase some sort of electronic that would help them complete their program. And I do believe that the library also has laptop rentals and things like that. Or if any of you need some sort of technology for accommodation purposes or anything like that, I would definitely say reach out to me or your program manager. We can go ahead and find a resource for you. Okay, so our session has unfortunately come to an end. But again, any questions, go ahead and email me at sphaward@berkeley.edu. And if you want an advising appointment, I also have those available, and I can share the link for you all to schedule yourselves in. But thank you so much for joining us all today. Enjoy the rest of your day.